Welcome back from the break, everyone. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Independent Thought. My guest for this week is Thom, the host of the Winner Gets Nothing podcast. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, man. Really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. Glad to be here.
I found this guy a few months back, I believe on Twitter, and have checked out your podcast several times now, currently subscribed on CastBox. You've actually had me on your podcast a couple times. For those of you who I forgot to mention or didn't mention it enough times, definitely go back and check out a couple episodes I did with this guy on his podcast. But, customarily, whenever I have a fellow podcaster come on, the first thing we have to do is talk about your podcast. And so, as always, I want to ask you, what was the motivation behind starting Winner Gets Nothing? Like, tell us a little bit of what it's about.
Truthfully, it kind of got started for me. I had a friend who just stepped in. We all kind of wanted to do it. There was no real concept behind it. We just sounded like fun. And finally, I got one of my friends who didn't really listen to podcasts into it. He got drunk, and at the club, he walks up to me and says, "I just bought the mics. We're doing a pod." And from there, kind of the inspiration for our direction has just kind of been a focus on making a place where it's just a fun environment. We're making jokes, not taking things too seriously, just talking about the way the world is, but really offering a safe place for ideas and stuff. And that's more led me into my second podcast, the one that you're on. That's Trash Talks, underneath the same feed. You can find it on the same place. But that subsection is where I get other people that I don't really, I don't know, just other views and stuff. And I just get people to come on and express themselves. And I've had anyone from extreme authoritarian left people to libertarian right people. I don't know, just like it's just a variety of perspectives. And it doesn't need to be political. Sometimes I had a guy on, we just talked about music. It's just kind of anything goes. But really the inspiration is creating a zone where it's safe to express ideas and get other people to do that with us.
Right.
Comedy.
And so you would base, like, what would you say the theme of it is? Like, if someone's coming to your podcast, what should they or could they expect from you when they listen to an episode of Winner Gets Nothing or Trash Talks?
Well, Trash Talks is more so what I just described right there. You're going to just get a variety of opinions just from all walks of life. I'm willing to have anyone on. If you want to talk to me, hit me up. I'm on Twitter at WGN Podcast. And that's that. But the regular show, it kind of just took on a life of its own. We just went on there and said anything. And then eventually we needed topics. And so then it just became kind of a very loose news show. And when I say loose news, I don't come to us for the facts. We read a headline and we make jokes. Like, it's just kind of having fun and just looking at the world and almost a personal diary of the nonsense that goes on around us,
Right. And as I've told some of you in my audience before, and this kind of like goes back to some of the things I was saying at the beginning of my last season, I wanted to make an effort to bring on other people, other voices who were a little bit different politically than my own. We have a lot of more left-leaning conversations on this podcast, and Thom definitely is on the other side of the political spectrum as far as his views on our country and politics, so on and so forth. So I kind of wanted to bring you on to talk about maybe like the other side of the perspective when it comes to some of these issues. But before we get into specifics, the first thing I wanted to ask you is, would you call yourself like a libertarian? And tell me like the distinctions about, I guess, what a libertarian is and where you kind of fall into this category.
If I'm talking to a absolute normie, yes, I'd call myself libertarian just to put myself in a box for I don't want to bruise their sensibilities. But I really know libertarian wouldn't be a great thing. Am I going to vote for the Libertarian Party? Probably, just because I'd like to bolster a third party in this country. And as between the Green and the Libertarian, and one's closer to the 5% marker. So I'd go with them. And I don't even really know what the Green's about. I didn't look into him enough. That guy Howie had a weird mustache. That's our last candidate. So I'd just bolstering a third party, but no, I wouldn't really like describe myself as libertarian. I would probably say something more anarchist is a fun word, but I also don't like these labels, because the thing is, you say you're one thing. Oh, especially say you're libertarian. You are not a real libertarian. How dare you? You'll get hit with all of it. Like, that's what libertarians do. It's just a bunch of different ideas that are anti-authority, and we just sit in one room and just at each other. It's nonsense. It's just nitpicky. But no, I'd probably lean more towards like anarchism, egoism's interesting me lately. Anarcho-mutualism. I don't know. There's all these different ideas, and you probably got to go like read 5 Wikipedia pages to pick up on any of those terms. But really, I'm just kind of anti-authority, and they seem like the most anti-authority party there is. Like, yeah.
Right. And so I think that's kind of the distinction that I wanted you to, I guess, more or less paint for the people who are listening here is, would you say, if you were talking to somebody on the left who maybe is a little unfamiliar with the Libertarian Party because they're not exactly talked about thoroughly in the mainstream, how would you describe it to somebody who's unfamiliar with that ideology?
Well, I think really what it comes down to is how much you want the state imposing in your life. Like, how much do you think the government should have the ability to come and make decisions for you? And anybody who's on board with as little as possible, I'm on their side. So when you specifically say, talking to people on the left, I don't think that's a fair description of libertarianism, because it's a top to bottom thing, not a left to right thing.
Okay.
It's if you look, just political compass terms, which that thing's useless. Everybody knows the interdimensional political hypercube is a much more better means of plotting your world place in the political spectrum. But yeah, really, no, it's a top to bottom thing. And libertarianism, actually, it was originated as a left-wing movement. Additionally, anarchism did too. Right-wingers just take it, tweak it, and, make it ours like they do with everything. But I wouldn't necessarily say it's excluding leftists, but how I'd explain it to someone who's on the left, just if you'd like a smaller government or less government influence in your life, you're probably somewhat libertarian.
Okay. And, I think a lot of the confusion probably stems from the fact that in some ways that seems as though that's the position of the current Republican Party. But you've told me in the past that you don't believe that the Republican Party and the Libertarian Party are even kind of related, or maybe they're just not related enough. Like, tell me in your words, like, what is the distinction between the Republicans and the Libertarians?
Okay. So, I don't understand what's anti-authority about worshiping police. I don't understand what's anti-authority about worshiping your president. I don't understand what's anti-authority about telling what people can do with their bodies. I don't understand there really is no choice. There's a right answer in the Republican Party, and they want to tell you what to do. Now, authoritarian left-wingers want the same damn thing, and that's why I call them Republicrats. I view Democrats and Republicans as more similar than you'd view, or maybe you view Republicans and Libertarians. I think establishment Democrats and establishment Republicans have way more in common than, anti-authoritarian left and right. Like, I think really that's the core issue of what it comes down to for me. And that's why libertarians, not the best description. It's anti-authoritarian in whatever form that is to you. Just, I don't like the idea that we can be dictated by just enough people saying we don't like the way you are. Just pick any subject, like whichever one you want, where another group of people gets to decide things for you. I don't like that situation. I want to leave people more open to their individual choices.
Speaking of individual choices, I wanted to kind of pick your thoughts on. I guess individual choice might not be the right way to phrase this, but kind of like, let's focus on some like policy positions in particular.
Yes.
You've told me in the past that you think that the minimum wage should be abolished.
Yes.
Now, you and I do not agree on this subject, but I'm going to open the floor to you first, and I would like you to tell me why you believe that the minimum wage should be abolished.
Okay. Well, it's let's start with its origins. It was originally designed to exclude immigrants and minorities from getting jobs. It was deliberately designed in its language to make that happen. And not just minorities, but also people with disabilities or just lower skilled workers or anything. Anyone they deemed undesirable, it was intended to lock them out of the system. It was intended to raise the wage to a certain amount where the only person that at the time people would deem acceptable is somebody that they had an idea that they could do the job better for some reason, and it tended to be kind of like racially biased in a sense because of just, I mean, the sentiment of when it was made. I mean, but it was the same way Canada and the US were at the time. I mean, this country has racist origins and it's taken a long time to break out of that. And when this was implemented, it was implemented for those reasons. That's one of the reasons.
Right.
I think just its origins is just something worth looking at. But if you want to go into why I don't think it works now is just kind of seeing it in practice. Right now, the percentage of people in the United States that live on minimum wage is like 2% of people. And I expect that number to have gone up since that I got that number. It's 2% currently that are living on minimum wage, but half of those are people 18 or younger. So the people who making eyebrows, is this so?
I'm a little concerned by those stats because I remember like covering this subject not too long ago. I'm a little unsure about those stats, but please continue.
Yeah. No, I might be spouting some terrible stats. Like I told you before this, I subscribe to these ideas, but people can explain them much better than me. From what I've gathered is that it's actually quite a low percentage. And when you talk to like I talk to people that are, just some of my viewers and stuff that are from Texas, they're much younger than me. Not one of them is working for minimum wage. And I like the only people I really see working on minimum wage is like very, very new workers, right? Or people who were and specifically in places that haven't really changed the minimum wage. Because like I was saying, I expect it to be higher. Because here in Massachusetts, I know everybody's working a minimum wage, but they've raised it so damn high. How could you not? How could you not be living off like minimum wage at this point? It's hard to compete. Like it's twice what it is in Texas right now. But none of them in Texas are really getting that. Like they're all working like for similar things. They're working for like $15 an hour, which cost of living gets raised when you raise the price of minimum wage. So I'm just looking around at these guys. They have houses at a young age. Some of them are married and stuff. And everyone I look around here is making the same amount only to have to live with their parents because they can't afford rent.
Right. So there's also a lot of other extenuating like circumstances that would play into that. The cost of living can change, different parts of the country, and job opportunities are going to be different in different parts of the country, so on and so forth. And yeah, I mean, we do see minimum wage being different through different parts of the country. Mm-hmm. The one question that I've always had about people who are more or less like against minimum wage is that sometimes the argument that I hear is, if we didn't have a minimum wage, there'd be more competition. Is that something that you feel as well?
I don't know if necessarily it provides more competition. It offers more room to provide competition because if the floor is at 7, well, then you can offer 9 and that's competition. So yeah, like I could see more competition being offered from that, but that's not really what I'm going for. I don't know. I don't think I'd say that it offers more competition necessarily. I mean, maybe it opens the playing field for a little because if the ground floor is lower. That's about the only way I could see that.
Right.
But go ahead.
Yeah. I think the thing that I always hear also on top of the competition standpoint is that, like if you keep, raising the minimum wage, well, then the price of goods and services is going to go up and then it's just a cyclical effect, right?
That's essentially what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Right. And the pushback that I've always had is inflation happens regardless, right? I mean, like the price of goods and services go up regardless, because for instance, the minimum wage hasn't gone up around here I think it's gone up less than 50 cents over the course of the last like 8 years, but the price of living has gone up here dramatically. The price of housing's gone up here dramatically. The price of food's gone up here, dramatically. Taxes are going up. So people's effective like take home rate has gone down dramatically, even though wages have been stagnant in this particular area. And so this idea that inflation is going to happen if you raise the minimum wage doesn't always, explain the entire picture where inflation will happen regardless, even the minimum wage doesn't go up. So shouldn't the federal government step in to kind of help people when wages are being stagnant?
Well, inflation goes up for many different reasons. And I'm saying minimum wage raises it specifically locally. Like you can see it happen faster in the cost of living and the prices of stuff. Like, I mean, you just drive over the border, just go. I'm in Massachusetts. I'll throw that out there. Right. Just go over the border things start getting cheaper. Like just you can already see it in like other states, just because of the way our not just our minimum wage, like obviously we have taxes and all these other things that go to it. There's so many more things that raise the prices of our goods. It's not like it's solely resting on the minimum wage. I'm just saying it's one of the factors that raises things. And so of course, yes, you're going to be dealing with that, in middle of the country and anywhere else.
Right.
But that's also because we're all tied into the same federal system, which is making its own irresponsible decisions, like printing endless money.
Oh, the deficit debate.
I know we've had this conversation.
It's always a fun one, but instead of, I feel like the deficit debate could honestly just like go in a circle. I feel like the last time that we had that conversation,
we didn't get anywhere.
No, it kind of went that way. But
yeah,
like I think we've both kind of like said our piece a little bit about the minimum wage. So I think the next thing I want to ask you about is, what are your thoughts on climate change legislation? And basically, do you think that the federal government should be stepping in as far as putting limitations on people, companies, both, either? What are your thoughts?
Personally, no, I don't think they should step in to do anything. Do I think climate change is real? Absolutely, 100%. I mean, the majority of scientists agree. And what can we do? We've talked about carbon taxes and things like that. Me and you kind of decided that that's probably not the best solution. But what to do to encourage people to do that? I'm not really sure what the answer is, but what I do know is one country taking upon itself to like tax the hell out of its citizens for their consumption, while other nations that, sometimes we give federal funding to are not held to those standards at all. I don't understand what we're doing. It feels like you're just punishing one populace while the problem's still ongoing. Like, especially with those carbon taxes we're talking about, they just sell them back and forth to each other. It's the same amount of pollution. Somebody ends up with a tax write-off and somebody ends up like polluting just the same amount. Like I don't even know. It just, it doesn't really make sense to me. And also, I don't really think it's fair for, the most of the northern hemisphere to have gone through its industrial age, and then just to tell the southern hemisphere, like, tough luck, no industrializing, we're not polluting anymore. Like, you just have to deal with whatever you got. I mean, it seems unfair to those countries to not let them industrialize themselves. What I think we should more focus on, because it doesn't seem like every country is going to play ball, is solutions after that, like building up infrastructure and ways to deal with these kind of things that seem inevitable at this point. I think we should put more of our focus into that rather than trying to put a Band-Aid to like slow down 2 degrees over 50 years when half the participants aren't even going to play ball.
You're bringing up a particular point that does make sense, because yes, even if the United States does go to completely like carbon neutral, we are effectively referring to 15% of global emissions. The United States is roughly creating about 15% of global emissions. So yes, if you're not able to get China, India, Brazil, other large nations to also do these things along with us, it's going to seem inevitably as if we're not truly making as big of a dent as necessary to overturn what has already been done globally.
Yeah.
However, with that being said, given the fact that our nation is in a unique position that a lot of other countries do more or less take their leads from us, do you not think that it is a good idea for us to set a standard here? I know that you don't like the idea of carbon taxes, but for instance, the Green New Deal is something that's been obviously talked about ad nauseum. I mean, mostly what it is just a framework for the government to just put mass mobilization into putting in new electrical grids, into reformatting buildings, to making new investments in clean energy, so on and so forth, divesting from fossil fuels. Do you see any value in the federal government doing something like that? I personally, just to put the record out there, I personally do. I did a whole episode on it. But just, I'm asking you personally, how do you feel about it?
If they would do that, but the number one polluter right now is our military, and they don't seem like they want to slow that down. It seems like half the amount of money we give them is just going to go to that, and that's just going to pollute more. So I don't believe them when they say they're going to do that. None of their actions have proven they're going to make the attempts that they say they're going to. They're like, give us the money now and you'll see the results later. And I have yet to see any results or even an attempt at them.
Right. Okay. Well, I can understand that. I appreciate you giving me your thoughts on that. I think, speaking about the military, though, this episode will be debuting on September 13th. So we're 2 days removed from the 20th I don't want to call it anniversary. That seems like a terrible word to attach to it, but the 20th year since 9/11. And, we're recording this episode before that date. So I'm assuming ahead of time that we made good on our promise and that Joe Biden got the troops out of Afghanistan like he said he would. So let's just, since, we're recording this ahead of time, we're not sure exactly if that actually happened or not, but let's just say that is what happened. Like, what are your thoughts on all that? Are you happy if we did get the troops out?
As a guy who slightly sits on the right, and I think Republicans, Democrats are the same guys, I will wholeheartedly go out there and clap at every Republican that Joe Biden is a better president if he actually stands by this promise. I don't know if he will. And then additionally, though, like Trump was like, let's get out by May. And he's like, no, I'll move the date. So it's me. And like, I'm like, all right. Like from what I've heard, like gathered, we're kind of already the hell out of there. And it's all just symbolic at this point. Especially with the date. I mean, come on. The original one was 9/11. That was a little too nail on the head. So let's move back to August 31st, because we need a few days to get them out of there, even though they're all pretty much gone. So, I mean, I've heard it's pretty much in the direction of it. It's happening. So, yeah, good on Joe Biden. You only got 6 more to go, bud.
6 more to go? 6 other countries?
Yeah, we're in a lot of different countries right now. Yeah, we're, from my perspective, I mean, Congress hasn't approved any of them, so call them what you want. We're in 7 wars.
Yeah. What countries are those off the top of your head?
What was it? Syria, Iraq, Libya. I think we're doing stuff in Somalia. I mean, we're aiding Saudi Arabia's efforts in Yemen. I don't know if we're in there. I don't know. I need a map. It's 6, man. We should only have 1 Vietnam or none. It's just like, what the hell is going on? Like, there's a lot. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we're all over the desert right now, just kind of messing with things. I mean, a lot of people don't like to talk about this, but we're on the subject of 9/11. Probably going to lose a lot of points from maybe all sides from this, but we were poking around in the desert a long time before they came here, funding these terrorist organizations to go mess with Russia. We made our own problems with a promise from these people. Osama bin Laden's like, coming for you next. You're just as bad. Thanks for the money. Like, we made our own problems and never let a good problem go to waste. I'm not surprised we're over there for 20 years, continuing to make this ridiculous military industrial complex all this money. For what? Like, tell me, why are we in Afghanistan? What was it? What are we doing there? Was it to go, disrupt these organizations that were building up under Osama bin Laden? Well, he's gone. I mean,
he's been gone for a decade. Yeah,
about half the time. So what have we been over there for?
It's a great question. There was a piece that came out, I believe, out of the New York Times, or maybe it was Washington Post, but it was, I want to say, just at the end of this past year, where the Pentagon basically, admitted that our operations over there have not been going anywhere close to as well as they were being reported. So, and that basically the Pentagon was just continuing to tell people that things were going better than they actually were. I'm not surprised to hear something like that. But, I'm just glad that our appetite as a nation has dwindled for wanting to be in these conflicts. I'm glad that we're all kind of coming to the same place in our minds where we all know that it's time for this to be done. And it really also upsets me. I'm not sure where we're at this, at this point when this episode comes out, but hearing people now having these interventionist type talks when it comes to places like Cuba or Haiti. And it just feels like it's a never-ending cycle. I'm just so tired of the U.S. talking about going into another country. Yeah. And it seems like that's maybe a place where we have found some common ground here.
Dude, forget about invading Cuba. Free Cuba. Hashtag free Cuba, just like Britney. Seriously, this embargo has been going on forever. Like, how can you really criticize their system? Like, I'm obviously not pro-socialism, communism, any of that. Whatever they're doing over there, let them run their experiment. Were you scared it's going to work? Like... I want an even playing field of ideas out there, and let them do them, because we've done nothing but undermine them since their inception. And I give them a chance to fail on their own. I believe they'll do it.
One of the last things I want to ask you as we're closing out, I'm sorry, that was kind of funny. If you could just, I guess, in a closing way, if someone's going to come over to your podcast and maybe they're interested in hearing more about your feelings, especially in related to politics, because, we just spent this whole time talking about politics. What would you say is the foundation of your political beliefs that more or less like sculpts your feelings towards, your ideology?
You do not speak for me. No one speaks for me. I speak for myself. That's kind of the core of it. I don't need, whether it be a king in a castle telling me what to do, or if there's 3 of us in a room and 2 people decided I'm wrong, they get to tell me what to do. My core values come from within, and I don't need somebody else telling me how to run my life. It's I speak for myself. That's pretty much it. That's the core of it. And everything else from there is just how you can implement that in your life. That's about it.
All right. Well, thank you, Thom. I appreciate you coming on the podcast today. Can you tell everyone where they can find you, social media, your podcast, where can they get a hold of you?
You will find me at Winner Gets Nothing on all your podcast things, not on YouTube because there's no video. We'll work on that. You can find me at WGN on Twitter, you can find me on Twitter at WGN Podcast. And if you're looking for politics, though, I did have 25 episodes of a political channel. I know we only talk politics here because that's what me and you do. But no, we tried to scrub them. We try to keep them out. Oh, except little teaser for my newest episode coming out. We did do one thing in politics, which, like I said, we try to stay away from now. We did the political compass and we tried to make Hell World. And guess where we landed? Right between Trump and Obama. We didn't do it on purpose. We just tried to pick the worst answers.
Okay.
Yeah, real cute place.
Okay.
It looks like Saudi Arabia on the map, but I don't know what that's about.
Okay. All right, Thom. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. For everyone who's interested, I'll have some links in the description for being able to get a hold of the Winner Gets Nothing podcast. For everyone else, we'll be right back after this quick break for my final thoughts of the day. Stay tuned.